Hello, welcome back to another Introverted Indies panel. I'm Lucy A. McLaren, one half of the hosting team of Introverted Indies, and today we're discussing mental health, which is a really important topic, and for authors in particular, it can be one that we have a few struggles with. So I'm looking forward to speaking to fellow indie authors today about the topic. So I'll hand over to you, Elizabeth, if you want to introduce yourself for me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name's Elizabeth. I'm a fantasy author. I'm from Ireland, and I've been writing basically all my life. I wrote about 5 books and self-published about 2 years ago. And yeah, I like traveling and learning new things basically.
Awesome, thank you. And Jen?
Hey, my name is Jen Sinclair. I'm from Florida. I have self-published 2 women's fiction books, the last one being about an astronomer who meets the President of the United States in a bar, and he happens to be single, and it kicks off a whole fun and interesting dive into what that would be like for an introverted genius scientist. And I also recently collaborated on a book that was also self-published with 3 other women's fiction writers called The Accidental Life of Emma Fasher. We wrote it under a pen name IVH Booker, and it's what we're calling dark friendship fiction about 4 writers who create a book using AI and it accidentally goes viral and it ruins their lives. So thank you for having me on the panel, and I look forward to talking about this topic.
Lovely, thanks, Jen. And yeah, so I'd probably introduce myself as well. I'm a fantasy writer as well, write dark fantasy, and I'm also a counsellor. And so mental health for me is a big part of that job, but I also bring it a lot into the writing that I do. And it's a really important topic to myself because I work in it, but also take a lot of inspiration from it, but also have had struggles with it as well. So we'll dive right into the questions then. The first one is, how do you take care of your mental health as an author? So Jen, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. Well, it's a lot of knowing when to take a break, which I'm not always good at. And I think the biggest thing for me is if we could just be creatives and do the writing work, I think it would be lovely. I mean, we'll always have struggles, but it wouldn't be as hard as it is. But when you put on top of it all the other elements of running a business and the creative work kind of takes a back seat, it can really impact our mental health. So I think finding community has really helped me. And being able to talk to other authors who have been there, done that, going through it can really help kind of lift me out of the funk before it settles in too hard. But it has settled in before, and um, I think leaning into the creative work for me, is a big part of the way to get out of it.
Yeah, I agree. And because when you start going into the world of being a published author, it is about so much more than the book, isn't it? As you kind of discover like I said, the business side of it, the marketing, everything that takes a lot of mental energy, and mental energy that we would rather be putting into the creative side of it. But then you feel like if you're not doing the marketing and everything else that falls under that umbrella, your books aren't going to find their audience. So it's having to find that balance, isn't it, between those two
Yeah.
sides. How about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, no, like you were both saying, it's all the extra bits. So the writing's almost the fun part of it, and it's all the extra bits that goes along with it. I'm a data analyst in my real job, and so I love like just lists. And so just yesterday I was going through and just making a list of like everything I need to do for the month, down to like what posts I need to do when, and just planning them out to not see what can be done on what day, to just not overwhelm myself, because it's so easy to know that you have 50 things to do and then you're like, oh, I'm never going to get there. And just sort of trying to plan what goes where, and then giving myself days off to go visit family, go to the gym, trying to that work balance life, And then I think the most important thing is sometimes you just don't do any of that and just curl up on a couch and just watch TV. Try not to berate yourself afterwards, and it's like, okay, sometimes you just need one of those days to just mind yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally feel that. The guilt of not being productive is is horrible. I think that's a larger societal issue really that we've kind of given the message from a young age that you have to be on all the time, you have to be working. That's what you strive towards always. And the idea of relaxation and rest is given a bad rep for some reason, even though we need it, right? Because if we don't have that, we can so easily reach burnout point, and then you just can't write. I've been there myself. You just there's nothing, there's not nothing in the well. There's nothing to give.
No. And actually, this is such a poignant topic for me right now because I am coming out of one of those burnout periods, and it's the first one that I've actually hit. And an author friend of mine who's brilliant, her name is Virginia McCullough, she told me that that's what it was because I told her I can usually deal with the overwhelming tasks and all the balls in the air and pick one or two to focus on. But it got to the point where I just couldn't, nothing felt good, nothing looked good, like nothing appealed to me, not even the creative stuff. So she was like, give yourself like a week and don't do anything writing related, which seemed impossible to me at the time. But she's like, what, read a book out of your genre, binge watch something on TV. And so I did that, and it was very easy to do, which was a little scary at first. I mean, it was kind of easy to turn it all off. And then when I started coming out of it, it's taking me some time, but I pivoted and wrote a little bit different story for myself. And I'm just kind of slowly building back up to doing all the things. It was very telling. I really didn't think I was going to be able to not think about writing for a week because, we think about it's 24 hours. It feels like my brain
Yeah.
is always thinking. Yeah, it's always working and on something. And my husband's like, I hope you can do it because you really need to do it. And so then I just kind of started making little rules for myself because I'm not a great planner, Elizabeth. I love to-do lists, but I'm never really great with keeping up with them. And so that's part of it, I know. But I kind of told him I'm going to just work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And unless I'm on a really big roll, unless I'm really in the flow, I'm not working weekends. So I've been holding to that fairly well. Although today I'm at actually a writing retreat with some friends. So this weekend, which has been really nice to get away from. But that is also something I recommend.
Yeah, because the writing retreat, I'd love to do that as well. Kind of having a young child, I don't have the luxury of being able to do that right now, but it's certainly on the future bucket list. A different mentality, isn't it? Because you're surrounded by writers, and it feels like there's an intentional space to focus on the creative side.
Yeah, for sure. And no puppies, no teenagers, no husband to ask me questions. We just write.
Cool. So, okay, well, if you want to introduce yourself, Katie.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Andrews, or Katie. I write poetry and fantasy and short stories. So I've got about 10 published works, ranging from little poetry collections, short stories, to like full-length novels. Yeah, and I live in Georgia.
Thank you. And so we've covered the first question being, how do you take care of your mental health as an author? So what would be your tips there, or what you do?
Yeah, mental health's like really important to me. So like today is a day where I'm not doing anything because I've been doing a lot of stuff. So having like a day of rest is really important for me. I was actually journaling this morning, so journaling is like really important to me. But like really just taking a step back from certain things, learning to let go of, is this the most important thing to do right now? Or am I stressed because I need to get all the things done? So really just like resting and taking a step back and journaling are like the main things I do to try and take care of my mental health.
Yeah. And we kind of spoke about the idea that taking rest can be difficult sometimes because you get the like guilty side of not being productive 24/7, and it can be something you have to learn. I mean, I've certainly found that I have to learn to allow myself to take rest, and it being like, right, I'm gonna play a video game or watch TV or whatever. Because it's so tempting just to be like, oh, I'll just open the manuscript and just see if anything comes out. But we touched upon as well about the fact that what that can lead to is burnout because you need time away from it. As much as there's a reluctance at times, there's perhaps a level of impatience, wanting to get your book finished, get that next milestone under your belt. Doing that long term has a really negative effect. So the next question being then, what do you feel has the biggest impact on an author's mental health? So Elizabeth, would you like to take that one first?
Yeah, well, I think comparison, to basically trying to compare yourself to others. They say comparison is the thief of joy. And once you start comparing yourself to others, someone's always going to be more successful than you. And it can really sort of make you spiral in a negative way. when you start to see other people become more successful or get better reviews or stuff like that. So I think that can lead to imposter syndrome, which I think is really a big thing.
Absolutely. I think it's really easily done as well because social media, I think, yeah, part and parcel of seeing everyone's news on social media all the time is that you can't help but compare yourself where you're at. What about you, Katie?
Yeah, definitely comparison is the thief of a lot of my joy. I am a slower writer. It's taken me a lot longer to get my sequel out than I was hoping, but I mean, I wrote other stuff in between. But life happens, and so this isn't my full-time job, and even if it was, life is still going to happen. Like, the beginning of the year was strong, but then I had a friend pass away in February, and that just like redirected everything of like, wow, okay, we got to deal with this, and there's just some days I can't work. I got to do something else. So just giving space for that and still trying to feel productive, but then also knowing like it's okay not to be productive based on the standard we set for ourselves. So it's a hard balance sometimes. There were weeks where it's like I've not touched my manuscript because I'm doing stuff for other people, or I need to take care of these life things, and getting frustrated, especially when people are like, when's your sequel coming out? When's your sequel coming out? It's like, well, it'll happen. I don't know when. That is the beauty and also the curse of self-publishing, of like, I get to set my own pace, but then the people who are invested in the story, like, oh, I want to make sure that they get it out so that they don't feel let down. So that's kind of like where I have to give myself grace. Even if they're disappointed, it's like, it's my work and it'll get done when it gets done. And it's important, but it's like, it's not the most important thing. Like, it will still be there at the end of the day. It's a hard thing. There's some days where I'm like, man, I really should have worked on that, or we're behind because we've done all these other things. It's like, well, these were the things that needed to get done. So yeah, it's hard because writing is both cathartic but also stressful. So it's just depending on the day of when it's going to be helpful or when it's really going to be stressful. But yeah, just, taking it day by day of, okay, we're going to get this done. If we don't, that's okay. We've still done other things. And that's a lot of things that I think readers don't quite know. Like, oh yeah, you get a book out. It's mentally taxing. There's only so much you can do in a day. The imposter syndrome is big, especially for sequels, because I've never written a sequel before. So it's like, I'm going to make this good, but what if it's not good? But it'll be okay. But what if it's not? So...
What about you, Jim? What do you feel has the biggest impact?
Everything Katie and Elizabeth said, and then I'll add to it. Being a writer is lonely sometimes because we're all in our own little bubbles. And while it's wonderful as an introvert to have a bubble, it kind of can make it hard to maintain a healthy mental health balance. So I think that just getting out and moving and reaching out to other authors like we do here, like I do at WFWA, I didn't realize how important that would be until I found a community. And it does, it helps a lot. But yeah, that imposter syndrome, especially after you release a book and you're coming out with another one, it's like, is it going to be as good? Or is people going to be like, you were a one-hit wonder? It's just a lot of pressure. I think people just don't get it until they've done it.
Yeah, and there's that again, social media is such a paradox where you get so many negatives of the comparison thing, but then it seems like we've all kind of had experience of meeting fellow authors on there, building a community. I know I certainly have. Way too many Discord groups, and it's but it's nice to have that opportunity to build relationships with fellow authors. And it's really valuable to be able to talk to people that have kind of perhaps experienced the same thing or have experienced something similar, or you can just rant at them about how awful marketing is or the state of publishing or whatever you want to. So social media gives that opportunity. But as with everything, I think it's finding that balance. So being intentional about it, but yeah, it's really easy to get sucked in to all the horrors that are on there.
Yeah, and then of course, if that's like your main source of marketing, it's like, oh, well, I'm trying not to be on there for my own mental health. But, oh, now I've fallen behind in marketing, so now I gotta restart that. That's been kind of my season of it's exhausting. And then just taking the time to actually do even like the scheduled stuff where it's like I don't have to touch it, but I'm like, that's still a lot of work.
Yeah.
The burnout can be real.
Absolutely. And something that actually I think has been mentioned a few times imposter syndrome. And I've not spoken to a writer who hasn't experienced it at some point. And I wonder why that is. I wonder why it is so rife amongst writers, whether it's just a case of feeling confident in yourself and your own abilities is difficult when you're putting something out in the world that you've put so much of yourself into. Does anyone have any thoughts on that and why you
Yeah,
feel like it's so common?
I think what you were saying about everyone putting out their success stories, you only see people's success stories, you only see a final product from other people, their finished
Mm,
work, and you are still struggling to try and write your own, and it just feels, you're in draft one and nothing is working. It all is just horrible and you're trying to fix it, and it's all just messy, and all you can see is finished products, of all these successful authors, of all these famous
mhm,
authors, that you admired and grew up with, and you're trying to match their level from the start. And it's impossible because you don't know what they had gone through to get to that level. So I think that's sort of how, at least
mm,
for me anyway, that it's a big sort of comparison in that sense.
mhm,
It is really damaging, imposter syndrome, because you can really fall into it, almost like doom scrolling. You can just keep allowing yourself to believe that you're never going to make something work, you're never going to be good enough, nobody's ever going to read it. And then this thing that you have a passion for, because let's face it, we wouldn't be writing if we didn't feel called to do it. Because who would subject themselves to this crazy life if we didn't feel really called to do it? So I think it's easy to get trapped in that, and it really does take a lot of mental and emotional energy to get out of it and to just say, everybody has a reader. We've all read really amazing works and we've all read not so amazing works, and they all have a place. I know it's hard to fight through it, but it is something that everybody struggles with at one point. And the key is just to not allow yourself to sink into it for all eternity, or else you'll lose the spark you have for writing. And oh, how awful would that be? I don't know what I would do if I didn't write.
Yeah, I have that thought often. I'm like, what did I used to do in like my
Yeah,
free time before I was writing?
Oh my
I
gosh,
don't
yeah.
know.
who knows?
I don't remember. It's like all a blur.
It's so weird, isn't it? It becomes all consuming. And I think that's why it's so easy to fall into the hole of just wanting to do it all the time to the detriment of your own mental health. And I think, you're right, Jen, when you say about fighting against it, that can take a real amount of mental energy at times, just having that push of self-awareness to go, okay, no, I need to step in here. And I think it's akin to kind of anxiety really, whereas sometimes it's so easy to just fall into the loop of anxious thinking, and
Mhm.
it becomes more and more and bigger, and you just think, I don't know how to step out of this. This is um, too much, it's overwhelming. But that's why it's so important to be able to acknowledge what's happening. I think actually we can take comfort in the fact that so many authors do experience it, and not being alone in that. And that's where that community um, importance comes in, because you can talk to other authors about what you're experiencing
Yeah.
and understand that it seems to be a very, very common thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
So, what is your top tip for authors who are struggling with their mental health? Katie, would you like to take that one first?
Yeah, so like you said, like writing can be like all consuming. And so I feel like when anything is all consuming, you do need to take a step back from it, regardless of if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Because if it's taking the place of other good things and then your emotional and mental well being is suffering because of it, it's no longer a good thing. So taking that break, there is reason for it. There is value in that, even though it feels like you're not doing anything. I like gardening, so gardening. I always like to use metaphors, but there's the rest season for the fallow field, so you need to let it rest so the soil
Mm.
can get those nutrients back, so it can be beneficial. It doesn't look like it's doing anything, but it is beneath the surface. So like you do need that rest, and I think that comes down to each author of like how much you need. It's going to vary, but like getting decent sleep, getting decent water intake, moving around, going outside, touching grass, interacting with other
Mhm.
people, or, reading, doing the things that will like fill you back up. And so it is important to know yourself and know like when you start to get like really anxious or really stressed about it or really burned out, and being like, okay, now we need to take this break. We'll need to, step aside, refill and then recharge and then come back, so that you don't suffer and your writing doesn't suffer because of it. So I definitely don't ever think the craft is worth sacrificing like your well-being for it. We've seen like historically what it's done to other writers. It's like that's not healthy. And then as indies, like we do have like that little bit of pressure off of us compared to trad, where it's like we're not forced to hit a deadline per se. Like if you don't have a contract, you don't have to. It's good to challenge yourself, but also you need to know like when do we need to step back. So I would say just knowing yourself and knowing that it's okay to take that time to rest, to not do anything really. There's purpose in that, even though it's probably stressful and you're so used to going and hearing all the voices of your characters inside your head, but not touching the page. I think, that's important to do at times.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, giving yourself that almost scheduled rest time, making it a part of your writing routine, not writing. And again, come back to that comparison thing. You see other writers, they're like, oh, I've written however many thousands of words today, and I do that every day, and it's like, oh, should I be doing that? Oh crap! But actually, it has to be unique to you and what you can manage in your life. There are people that are juggling full-time jobs, children, with their writing. There's only so many hours in the day, and what you have to factor into that is absolutely downtime, rest time, watching some rubbish TV show, whatever you want to do, whatever you take rest your creative brain, because it's not an infinite well. Jen, what would you say your top tips are?
Rest, as I've learned, and it does us good to walk away, because sometimes that's when we get that breakthrough idea or moment. I know I've figured out my hardest plot points like in the shower. Sometimes I'm like, oh yes, he can do that, and it fixes so much of the thing. But yeah, knowing when to rest, and again, reaching out to people, other writers, and whether it's online or in person, and leaning into that community to know that you're not alone. Super, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Elizabeth?
Yeah, kind of just going to echo what's been said, but very similar to Casey. I had a loss about 2 years ago when I was writing my sequel, and it just completely threw me. And I had planned the sequel to come out about a year after, and it just wasn't coming together. And I had to sort of come to accept that, I was still sort of grieving and still sort of processing things, to give myself that time and not put the pressure on myself. Like Casey was saying, we don't have those deadlines. We can move them if needed. And it was very hard to accept, because I like to hit deadlines, even self-imposed ones, and be kind to myself and give myself that time to process and work out the story as I needed to, because it wasn't coming together. I had to strip out a chunk of it and rewrite it to make it work. As Jen said, just community. Having a community is huge, to be able to share and talk to and understand the issues that you're going through. Stuff like that, like trying not hitting your words or character not working, all that type of thing. I think that's a huge thing, to be able to bounce off people that understand.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like my husband, for example, is very supportive, but does not appreciate what it feels like when you, I don't know, get a rejection, or the toll of trying to work out how to market a book or whatever it is. If you're not someone that feels drawn to it, then you're just not going to get why it's so difficult to pull yourself away at times. I think that the idea of self-imposed pressure is an important one, isn't it? Because if you're self-publishing, there is absolutely no reason to make yourself unwell in the pursuit of finishing a book before you're ready to do so. Ultimately, it's not going anywhere, right? It's going to be waiting for you when you come back to it, when you're okay to work on it, and acknowledging that there are so many things outside of your book and in your life, especially at the moment with the world being as it is. Taking care of your mental health feels so important.
Sure. And writing can't help us take care of our mental health if we're locked up because of the writing. I mean, it's such an important part of my own mental health. Writing is, it's just something I need to do. So when I can't do it, it's the cycle. You can't do it, anxiety from not doing it, anxiety when I do it, anxiety when I don't do it. It's just overwhelming. vicious cycle. And you're right, spouses and family can be super supportive, but unless they're doing it themselves, they don't necessarily understand or appreciate the same things that we all appreciate about it, including that vicious cycle.
Yeah, is it because I find it helps with my mental health as well, not just in terms of the actual physical act of writing, but some of the things that I write about is kind of trying to
Yep.
make sense of some of the absolute BS that's happening. Not to keep coming back to politics, but it's just so it's so there right now. So yeah, part of writing stories for me is trying to process my feelings around what's happening. So being able to do that does feel important. It does feel like I should keep doing that as much as possible and not stop. But again, as with everything, I feel like there's a pattern here. Balance.
Absolutely.
Does anyone do any like non-fiction writing? I think you mentioned journaling, Katie.
Yeah, so I do journaling and then I do poetry as well. So I haven't put out a poetry book in a while, but I've been working on one that's going to be a little bit more grief centered just because this is the year we found ourselves in. So yeah, working on that. I'm not sure if it'll come out this year. I might just wait till next year to put that out just because, again, whatever's processing, whatever's coming. So yeah, that's been like the main thing that I've done, at least through this season of grief, of just having a place to like put some of those things. And so even if it never gets published, I'm like, there's at least a spot where we process some of those emotions, we process some of those feelings, and they're in a place that's not just my head. And so it is helpful to get that out. But yeah, journaling, there's no rhyme or rhythm for me, which is great. So it's just word vomit, just to get it all out of like, does this make sense? And then, it's not continually bottled up. So yeah, those are my like nonfiction avenues of at least writing to help with processing things.
Anyone else?
I do journaling. I just don't do it regularly, but it's so helpful. And I feel like all of my work, for the most part, has some element of dealing with grief and loss, and that just seems to be a continual season that I'm in. There's always some element of that, of me processing it, even in the fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I'm someone that I know how beneficial journaling is, and I'm constantly telling my clients to journal. Do I do it myself? No, but I absolutely should, because it is so valuable. It's that word vomit. It's just that ability to just get everything out of your brain, because it can build up on it. Just, if you don't let it out, it's got to come out in some way, and that's where it can lead to panic attacks or anxiety or whatever. So yeah, it's a really useful tool, and I do think it could be very beneficial for writers to have something outside of the writing itself that is helping to manage how you're feeling, because we don't want to, don't put all our eggs in one basket, do we really? Ultimately, it's because it's kind of, there's the risk there of taking the joy out of writing, as we've said, touched upon the burnout thing. It's horrible when that happens. Cool. So I've run out of questions. So did anyone want to add anything, any thoughts or comments to end with?
Just talking about mental health in any kind of creative sphere, I think is always important. Then just even because Jen was saying, our writing can be a nice vehicle to express some of their things. Like one of my books was very focused on grief and loss. So it was a nice kind of project to work on that I didn't think I needed at the time. But then you just to also see like how people connect with some of the mental health themes in our writings, like that's also like encouraging. There's purpose in it, like when we have those struggles and we can be a little bit vulnerable about that. It's great to see that connectedness. But then also just to talk about it in the real sphere of like, hey, this is important. I think like as women, we're really good at talking about that. Men need to step that up a little bit more. Because it is so important, especially for like male authors. I feel like it's not talked about as much, but it is slowly starting to be. Just talking about it more and like what that means, because so often people are like, well, it just seems like you're sad, or you need to calm down, or not worry. It's like, well, there's deeper rooted issues, and just like getting to kind of understand yourself. How can you start to notice your own patterns? How can you correct the patterns? How can you move through the patterns rather than like self-numbing and just doing total distractions, because distractions only work so long. So I like that more conversations are happening. in especially like the creative spheres.
Yeah, I agree. It's very important. And I always think that having self-awareness, once you had that light bulb moment and realized your own patterns of behavior and thinking, you can't turn that back off again. It might take time to get to a point where you start to challenge the patterns of behavior and thinking and everything else. Been there myself, worked with many people that have been there, and it's difficult. Fully agree, Kate, like the idea of talking to people, journaling, really exploring yourself and understanding yourself is yeah, the key really to working on your mental health and getting to a point where you feel okay.
And always know when to get help. That's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
professional help. You
Yes,
can't handle it.
absolutely.
yeah. And yeah, join those communities, speak to people, whatever it is. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, everyone. It's been really lovely talking and just, hashing it all out and understanding how you all manage your mental health. And thank you for sharing your experiences. I really appreciate it. Do you want to share where to follow you all? I'll go around. Elizabeth.
Yeah, you can find me at Elizabeth Daly Author, and I have a book called Legacy Bound. It's a fantasy adventure, and I have a fairy tale, and my short stories going to come out in a fairy tale anthology at the end of the year. That's called Grim Fable.
Thank you. Jen?
I am on Instagram at Jen Sinclair Writes, and my website is also jensinclairwrites.com. You can follow me there for updates.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky under K.E. Andrews, or am I the K.E. Andrews author on Twitter? And then keandrews.org is my website. You can find most of my ebooks are available through my website directly. I have an Etsy shop where I sell physical copies. Yeah, and then I'm, like I said, trying to work on the sequel to my Grinning Assassin trilogy, and we'll see how that goes. But I've got Hills of Heather and Bone out. I've got The Assassin and Grins and Secrets, and Wild Skies as my fantasy book.
Thank you. And do be sure to follow the Introverted Indies account. It's at Introverted Indies on Instagram. And thank you so much again for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.